There are plenty of things that terrify your average video game connoisseur. A corrupted game save, missing a side quest, party members abandoning you when you've given them all your good loot, or Fortnite fans. Ugh. These day-to-day hazards are frankly terrifying enough on their own, so when a video game actively tries to spook us, we're even more likely to have a nasty trouser accident. Immersion is a major factor. Unlike movies and television, we can't hide behind the sofa because instead, like a horrifying school sports day, participation is mandatory. Worse still are the unnatural number of unexpected spooks that have no right to be in seemingly innocent games. Your nasty houses or quiet hillocks are upfront about their intentions, but the likes of Echo the Dolphin and Majora's Mask have got some explaining to do. We've done a whole list on spooky kids games in fact, so maybe watch that one after this one, okay? But it's time I got my act together and tried to be a strong, brave boy or girl, because today we're going to be looking at the scary moments from games for grown-ups, which isn't going to be much fun. Worse still, we've asked everyone in the office for their personal choices and ended up with 13 entries, because 13 is the scariest number of them all. Ooh. So, let's begin. But let's do it quietly, otherwise they might find us hiding in this cupboard. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are 13 spooky gaming moments that haunted our nightmares. Number 13. ALMA'S appearances. Fear. Little girls are creepy. That's a scientific fact, actually, proven by the people at the Little Girls Research Institute, where they do creepy experiments involving creepy little girls. Because little girls are creepy. The Shining knew this, The Ring knew this, and so does the crack military squad, whose name forms the convenient acronym F.E.A.R, or FEAR, if you want to get foreshadowy about this. This rooting, tooting, spookum shootum series, first seen in 2005, combined squad-based FPS with more than a hint of the supernatural. While anyone who signed up for First Encounter Assault Recon probably knew what they were getting into, that didn't stop any of us jumping out of our skin every time the unnerving child Alma popped up to say, "Hello," that's my creepy little girl impression, before disappearing, causing us to frantically search in every corner for her, because I swear to God, she was right there. I saw her. Okay, maybe she's gone. There she is again! This hide-and-seek creep kept us constantly on edge, appearing at a moment's notice with freaky visions and psychotic psychic abilities. While Alma appears often in the series, nothing compares to that early fiery corridor scene where she menacingly approaches you as you're powerless to fight back. A short moment, but one that felt to us like eternity. Number 12. RAVENHOLM, Half-Life 2. Half-Life isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think horror game, but during the first half of Half-Life 2, is that the quarter life? But then if it's quarter life 2, that's 2 quarters make a half, so it's Half-Life 1. God, no wonder Valve don't count to 3. Maths is hard. Anyway, playing Quarter Life 4, one thing is made abundantly clear. We don't go to Ravenholm anymore. You shouldn't go to Ravenholm. I'd love to go somewhere nice for a holiday, but absolutely not Ravenholm. So, obviously, we go to Ravenholm, the mining colony that suffered a nasty outbreak of head crabs. Oh no, I don't like it. While it's an excellent playground for the newly acquired gravity gun, the area also changes the tone of the game rather drastically, upping the spook factor from unsettling dystopia to literally a zombie game. It's an ominous start, with a half body hanging from a tree, and a classic is it dead moment of a stirring corpse. But it quickly becomes an out-and-out desperate fight through Zombie Town, the air filled with the outcries of the local madman and the piercing wails of the undead. Which, when played in reverse, actually contain the words, "Oh God, help me," which is all I need, given that I've still got about 50 years left of my life ahead of me, in which I was, at some point, hoping to actually get some sleep. But, never mind. Number 11. The SHINRA Massacre, Final Fantasy VII. It's another non-horror title nominated by an Office chum, but in fairness, Final Fantasy VII is one of the darkest entries in the series. This industrial sci-fi world carried heavy themes of oppression, terrorism, megacorporations, and extraterrestrials, which set it apart from the usual wizard and goblin parties. And yes, there's also that heart-wrenching moment that single-handedly shattered the childhood innocence of thousands. Essentially, this game is no fairy tale romp. But among the numerous atrocities performed by Sephiroth, including war crimes, ship massacres, and impaling giant snakes, his actions at SHINRA headquarters stand out as a seriously not cool moment. Infiltrating this megacorp HQ, we stumbled across the contained Genova and promptly pooed. I mean, geez, Sephiroth's own creepy reunion with the world's best mum was disturbing enough, but the walk through the literal graveyard shift at SHINRA after your party is captured, seeing nothing but corpses in this once busy office block, is something that sticks with us even today. The blood trails, the creeping music, the random encounters with escaped failed experiments. For God's sake, I've told Cthulhu time and again, stop breeding with Pokemon, it's disgusting! Number 10, the introduction, Dead Space. Okay, Sci-Fi Rescue Mission 101. If a ship goes radio silent, best to send in heavily armed space marines first, rather than a solitary engineer. That's what we've learned from 2008's Dead Space, which brought freshly reanimated life to the stagnating survival horror genre. The series was a lesson straight from the Resident Evil book of building tension, with scarce ammo, claustrophobic environments, and menacing, crazy-limbed enemies, ramping up to some really disturbing moments, including, but not limited to, Explodo Babies, Extreme Headbanger Man, Surprise Clingy Tentacle, the I'm not dead, I'm just resting my eyes guys, or self-administered eye surgery gone wrong. Oh, raspberry jam everywhere. But for us, we found that, like with many survival horror games, the opening sequence was the most terrifying. After an ominous introduction to the USG Ishimura and its corridors stained with mystery red sauce, you've barely completed the tutorial when you're forced to run like hell as these gangly gore bags chase you to the lift, made more frantic by the fact that you don't even have a weapon yet. Before it was popular for horror titles to feature an unarmed protagonist, this manic chase left us feeling completely vulnerable from the start, and also scared the bejesus out of us. There's bejesus all over the place now. I didn't even know I had this much bejesus inside me. Okay Google, how do I get bejesus stains off my comfort blanket? Number 9. Meeting the Master, Fallout 1. The grim wasteland of the Fallout universe is filled with dark stories, from twisted vault experiments to actual cannibal towns. But before all that, we had the Master, his super mutant army, and the children of the cathedral. And meeting the Master is an image we'll never really be able to scrub from our minds, no matter how much palate-cleansing Katamari Damacy we choose to play. Infiltrating this creepy cultist's cathedral, you delve deeper into the worryingly fleshy corridors of the first ever vault, discovering human test subjects with psychic powers, which drives you insane as a result. Without the correct tinfoil headgear, you're treated to some graphic visions, such as dead friends, crawling flesh, eye-piercing bones, or your standard horror hallucinations, before meeting the Master himself, a gruesome melding of meat and machine. His backstory is pretty depressing. A doctor who was trapped in a vat of the FEV virus and was mutated beyond recognition. But perhaps the worst thing is the set of disparate voices when he speaks, the voices of all the souls he's absorbed into his consciousness, screaming out.
Do you join the Unity, or do you die here?
Join.
Die!
Join.
Die!
We would say he deserves a revival in the modern Fallout setting, but the somewhat retro jankiness of the presentation here is already perfectly creepy, and more to the point, seeing this fleshy mechanical mess in modern HD would probably be a violation of numerous human rights. Number 8. Deleted save data, Eternal Darkness. Games have always strived, or striven, towards complete immersion, and the horror genre in particular has always thrived, or thriven, on building environments that draw you in for maximum terror, which is what makes the 2002 GameCube title Eternal Darkness so intriguing. It smashes the fourth wall multiple times, making a mockery of in-game immersion, and yet it has some genuinely terrifying moments, mainly because it knows that a player's biggest fear is something that lies outside of a horror game's narrative. That is, a corrupted memory card and deleted save data. Why would you do this? That's just pure evil. The first Nintendo published game to earn an M for mature rating, definitely for the memory card trick alone, I'm sure, pushed the boundaries of both horror and professional trolling to breaking point. Throughout the game, you fight not only Lovecraftian beasties, but also your own sanity, and if your mental state drops too low, you'll be subjected to all manner of hallucinations. TVs getting louder, quieter, or switching off altogether, abrupt endgame screens, deleted inventories, even memory-corrupting blue screens of death, and, as mentioned above, most notoriously, the game deleting your save data. Trying to select a different option doesn't help. It's inevitable and horrible and soul-destroying. But it's okay, because as the characters say every 5 seconds, this isn't really happening.
This isn't really happening!
Or is it? I'm kidding, it's just a prank, bro. God, don't go anywhere. Need the ad revenue. Number 7, Retro Spooks. Oh, a bundled wildcard entry, such value for money. You don't need fancy giblet graphics or ray tracing enhanced blood splatter to create a game that'll haunt your very being. So we knew we wanted to give an honourable mention to some old school spookum. However, there were so many that deserved a shout out that we figured a multi-spook entry was in order to cover the best of the retro scene. For starters, the sinister 16-bit SNES title Clock Tower, released in 1995, had some surprisingly nasty jump scares for a point-and-click adventure, usually involving Scissor Man, who we're pretty certain isn't a freelance hairdresser. Sweet Home, the 1989 Japan-only title that inspired the Resident Evil series, proved that RPGs can be scary too, with gruesome scenes, unsettling themes, and those disturbingly familiar doors. Like today, even just music could freak us out in the retro era. Pokemon's Lavender Town is an obvious example, but my personal not-so-feel-good track was the Castle Dungeon level in the PS1's Gauntlet Legends, which is literally just a series of screams set to music. Hide your kids, hide your wife, because here's a few seconds of it. Who thought this was a good idea? But undoubtedly the most blood-curdling, shiver-inducing, wee-wee-making harbinger of doom was that damn Yeti from Ski Free. That relentless snow bastard turned a simple ski trip into a living nightmare, chasing us all with thoughts of bloody murder on his deranged face. Curse you, Yeti, for my irrational phobia of ski slopes. Number 6, Pyramid Head, Silent Hill 2. Early Silent Hill titles were a far more psychological and arguably more distressing counterpart to Resident Evil, offering a relatively nuanced story, at least in contrast to zombies, T-viruses, and delicious Jill sandwiches. In the second game, protagonist James ends up, perhaps unsurprisingly, in the perpetually foggy town of Silent Hill, hence the name, a place with a past as disturbing as its locals. One such local is Pyramid Head, who you meet multiple times throughout the game. The first encounter is weird enough, with the tetrahedral terror just standing there, staring at you, behind some bars, but the next occasion in which you run into him is seared into our retinas for its creep factor, as we interrupt Mr. Isosceles doing some horrendously questionable things to a couple of mannequins, who, by the way, aren't so normal looking themselves. What makes this so sinister is the mysterious nature of Pointy Shape Face. So many questions. Are we the only ones who can see it? How does it keep coming back? Is this headwear a mere fashion statement, or is the actual head shaped like that underneath? Oh god, sorry, the mere notion. Sorry. It's a shame that PT fell through, really, as we would have really liked to experience a potential return for Egyptian tomb noggin person. Well, maybe watch someone else experience it anyway, while we hide behind the safety of this cushion, now available for purchase at TripleJump.com/shop. Number 5, Window Dogs, Resident Evil. While Silent Hill is certainly more thought-provoking, there's no denying the legacy of the Resident Evil series, which manages to consistently redefine the survival horror scene, aside from a few mediocre entries. Resi 6. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I'm still trying to fight off this T-virus. It's difficult to pinpoint just one key horror moment from the series, as you'll know if you saw our comprehensive Scariest Resident Evil Moments list earlier this year. It was written, presented, and edited by me. Go and watch it, thank you. Maybe the highlight is the enemies of Resi 4, especially those terrifying sack-headed tree surgeons and anaphylactic airway-toting Iron Maidens. Maybe it's the unrelenting pursuit from Resi 2's Mr. X, who just won't leave you alone. That is when the doors themselves aren't trolling us with zombie surprises. There's Resi 7's old Mrs. Baker mocking us with creepy songs and her Little Britain-inspired disappearing act. Although, to be fair, literally anything in the relatively grounded and gritty 7 could leave you mentally scarred for weeks, especially if viewed in VR. Why you'd actually do that to yourself, though, we wouldn't understand. You know what, though? Window Dogs. I mean, what else could we actually pick to represent the series as a whole? Resi 1's home-invading puppers win it hands down. It's totally predictable now, of course, years later, and it's a jump scare, which is hardly the Shakespeare of horror spooks, but it's also just iconic. The first time you realise that nowhere is safe, that windows are bad, and that going forward, your inventory management is going to have to account for some space for a few spare pairs of pants. Also, while we have your attention, we also ranked every playable Resi character from worst to best this week, so please go and watch that too. God, that's like the third recommendation you've had from me so far. You've got quite a night ahead of you. Number 4, The Orphanage, Bloodborne. In a different life, Bloodborne could have been the pinnacle of survival horror. A dark, gothic realm of eldritch monsters and punishing difficulty certainly ticks all the boxes. But one area deserves more scrutiny, and that's the orphanage. I mean, the name alone couldn't be any more of a warning if it were literally called "Don't Go Here, you idiot." But if you did decide to visit this optional area, you idiot, be prepared for bad times. There's another window-jumping dog for a start, making Resi's pooches look like cute cuddly puppies by comparison, not least because these canines turn out the lights at one point, because Bloodsport is much better with mood lighting. You'll also run into these whatever they are, who will paralyze you and then suck out your brain juice, like it's a delicious milkshake of fear and useless TV trivia. Add to this the ever-present general anxiety in a Soulsborne game, and you've got a recipe for serious heart palpitations. Just don't go to any doctors in Yarnum, okay? We don't go to Yarnum anymore. Number 3, The Wilson Brothers, Outlast. We normally like to keep things quite formal in our entry name slates, careful inclusion of relevant colons and hyphens as seen in the official wording of the game title, for example, appropriate use of Roman numerals versus regular digits, you know, that sort of thing. However, whatever they call them in-universe, there's no better name for the pair of actual naked men in Outlast than that which we gave them in our live stream playthrough. Ladies and gentlemen, The Wilson Brothers. Also known as Cox Caught on Camera, 2013's Outlast was part of the new wave of stealth horror games that didn't care about your personal safety enough to actually give you a weapon. All you had was a camcorder equipped with night vision and a whopping 10-minute battery life, and your legs. Your stupid, weak human legs that couldn't run nearly fast enough. This feeling of vulnerability, playing as a regular investigative journalist rather than horror's answer to Rambo, makes exploring the asylum a daunting experience. A game of hide and seek with the highest possible stakes. Most of the inmates are unsettling in their varying degrees of insanity, and it's always a major roll of the dice when encountering someone in a corridor as to whether they're going to try and make your innards outards. But one of the most chilling encounters involves two rather broad chaps with their own rather broad chaps out for all to see. I guess they do Naked Thursdays here too, same as Cultaholic. The disarming reaction from seeing their lack of attire quickly disappears when you witness them calmly discussing dinner plans involving your body parts. The cool assurance of their promise to kill you slow and give you a head start is somehow more distressing than the chase itself. God, they can give me all the head starts they like, but they're not getting any head back from me. Put it away. Number 2, everything. Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Yeah, thanks, Amnesia. Everything we were taught as a child about not being afraid of the dark is absolutely null and void now. This 2010 nightmare fuel revitalized the horror genre, taking a simple concept of light and dark and making us absolutely terrified of the latter, regressing into a primal fear of the shadows. Staying in the dark for too long affected your sanity, making you easier to spot by the very monstrosities you were hiding from. But by raising your sanity in the light, you also make yourself easier to spot by said monstrosities. Oh, and staring directly at them has the same effect. So, in an evil genius move reserved for inventors of new torture implements, you're just as compelled not to look at your pursuers as you are desperate to see where they are, keeping you in a constant state of mystery and dread. Doors are seemingly the monster's only weakness in this frightening catch-22. Once again, we genuinely can't pick one single standout moment here because every second of this game is anxiety personified. We've heard the sewer level was particularly dreadful, and the choir area's jump scare was a heart-stopping moment, but honestly, we got like 2 rooms into this game and then rushed straight to IKEA to buy every single one of their bedside lamps. Well, take the lot! And number 1, meet the Xenomorph: Alien Isolation. This is the game the Alien series deserved. Forget the Alien vs Predator titles or Colonial Marines, we all wish we could forget that one anyway. 2014's Isolation captured the spirit of the first film almost flawlessly. The 80s sci-fi aesthetic is lovingly recreated, as are the claustrophobic environments, and of course, that bloody horrifying Xenomorph too. A lot of the most pant-ruining spooks are the organic ones, emerging as you play rather than in carefully scripted scenes, thanks to the excellent AI of the alien itself. You can run, you can hide, you can even distract it with fire, but it will never stop hunting you. Adding to the tension is the impeccable sound design, the echoing thuds of pursuit, the ominous clanging from the ventilation shafts, and the iconic motion tracker with its blip, 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 dead. Each player will have their own tales to tell, but one moment that everyone can vouch for is the first encounter with this so-called perfect organism. The creature menacingly descends from an air duct, leaving you cowering behind a desk as its tail slithers horribly close to your legs. You knew from the outset you were going to come face to face with this thing at some point. I mean, you bought a game called Alien, after all, but this moment never fails to take years off your life. Well, that's our list, and here we are now cowering in a locker with a renewed fear of aliens, dogs, little girls, windows, PS1 soundtracks, and Wee Willy Winky. But what are some of the spookiest gaming moments you've experienced? Let us know in the comments below, because we refuse to leave our safe space to add any more to the list right now. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and if you want to support the things you enjoy, why not check out the rewards on our Patreon? Nothing spooky over there, let me tell you. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I've been Peter from TripleJump. Have a safe Halloween, and thanks for watching.